Welcome to the second roundtable, which is about fisheries and recreational activities when MPA governance players steward a common blue capital. So I'm Phénia Marras, I'm the moderator of this roundtable, and I'm working at the French Biodiversity Agency. I'm based in Brest, which is in Brittany, in the Atlantic Ocean, and so it's always funny for me to work with Mediterranean friends since the Atlantic. I'm here on behalf of my colleagues who they are working with the Mediterranean, and they are more on the ground than I am, fortunately for them. So I'm here on behalf of them, and I ask them just some of the activities they may have in France. So in France, we have 2 marine parks. The one is the Lion Gulf. It will be very close to the place where you will be visiting on Friday. It's just on the other side of the borders. And the second marine natural park is in the Corsica island. And we have also a team in Marseille who are in charge of the European label of Natura 2000 marine sites, for instance. And while on these topics of socioeconomic stakeholders, governance, etc., in France, with marine natural parks, we have a model which exists since about 10 years. And it's the governance model with a management council that involves like about 40 members, 40 representatives of stakeholders, including local socioeconomic representatives. And also for the implementation of the management plan, they are working with local stakeholders. Now the current discussions they have, it's about kayak activity, for instance, inside the marine natural parks, or sea urchins, for instance. So this is in progress for the moment. So these were some examples I got from my colleagues. But today, for this roundtable, the objective is to discuss this topic with different stages. So I would like to thank also the organizers of this joint event from the Interreg MPA networks and the Interreg MPA engaged projects that organize this joint event, that invite me for this roundtable. And so not only they organize this session, but they have been coordinating all the activities of this cooperation project at the Mediterranean level. So first of all, for this topic, we'll have feedback from the pilot sites. So concretely, what happened, what are the lessons learned, and how these lessons learned can be contributions for our work today. What is our work today is to have inputs for technical recommendations for this policy brief, which is like a support to decision-making process. This was like the conclusions of the first roundtable, and we stay in the same type of exercise. So after the feedback from the silent bites, we continue with inputs that we may have from training activities, a point of view at the network level, which is also interesting to share views at this level, and of course a discussion on different proposals related to the topic of the roundtable. So fisheries, recreational activities, and how to get involved as players in the governance in order to aim at a common blue capital. And we will start with some background elements. So this is about setting the scene. And we have a video, so please, can you send the video? Thank you.
In Karaburun Sazan National Marine Park, it is important to monitor fish landings in order to assess the positive effects of marine protected area conservation and management measures for protecting key biodiversity elements while also sustaining local livelihoods. The established collaboration between small-scale fishers, marine protected area managers and researchers provides reliable scientific data on fish landings almost every week. Furthermore, fishers are actively making an effort to define and support appropriate management measures in the area.
Okay, and so we start with the feedback from pilot actions. Just to tell you that at the end of the presentations, we will have like 20 minutes question and answers. So keep your questions for the end of the presentations. And of course, we will be following with a discussion on the proposals for the policy brief. So feedback from pilot actions. And first of all, Genti, please, for a presentation of small-scale fisheries and recreational fishing in, I hope I can say it correctly, Karaburun Sazan Marine National Park or something like that.
You made it perfect.
Thank you.
If I can have that.
Yes.
Thank you, Phénia. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the activities we have done in our marine protected area, and thanks to the MPA network project for allowing us to work on this area. This pilot action is what's happening in the only marine protected area we have for the moment. Hopefully this will change soon due to efforts from the Ministry of Environment to publish another marine protected area. But for the time being, this is the one we have, and the pilot action was actually happening on this, or supporting this marine protected area. It was, as the title said, as you see in the video, focused on small-scale fishery, but also trying to check the opportunities for recreational fishery as another element to support protected area management, but also fishers to do some more income by supporting recreational fishery. The issue was already mentioned in the management plan for the marine protected area. So the action plan was kind of supporting the MPA managers to implement some activities of the management plan. It also supported the management authority to collect some very important data on fish catches and fish landings and fishing efforts in and out of the marine protected area to show how important the marine protected area is for the fisheries sector. And last but not least, it was a good tool to improve cooperation between small-scale fishers and the marine protected area manager, but also other stakeholders that were involved during the implementation. The pilot action was developed through a number of activities, starting from identifying the real stakeholders, so who are the small-scale fishers operating in the Bay of Laura or close to next to the marine protected areas. Involved a number of studies and research and assessments of what was the fish catch, what was the efforts put by small-scale fishers in the area. And then we also developed or collected together a number of best practices and promoted those best practices with local fishers so they can use them in their everyday fishing activities. We provided a number of training to local fishers on how to use this best practice, but also how to deal with other important species that they end up in their nets as bycatch. So how to handle them and how to recognize and put them on safety. We also developed monitoring protocols and manuals for the marine protected area managers on how to monitor fish catch and how to collect data for those events. And also try to check the aspect of recreational fish, so how to develop recreational fishing activities in the area in order to support the MPA. We also developed a number of recommendations together with fishers, with protected area managers and other stakeholders of the area on what should be improved, both legally, institutionally, but also practically, in order for the small-scale fishing activities to be supportive to protect area management and also beneficial for the people in the area. Key results, of course, improved knowledge. So we know more about what species are there, what is being catched, and what fishermen spend in efforts on doing their fishing activities. Now we have a number of best practices which are promoted and used in the area through fishers. We have a better cooperation between small-scale fishermen, protected area management, and other stakeholders. We have some recommendations, as I said, on legal framework to be improved or institutional framework to be improved in supporting the small-scale fishery. And the most important one was this proposal, which was coming from the fishers, to create this no-take zone that will serve both them for improving the fishery, but also the conservation, biodiversity conservation activities in the area. In terms of lessons learned, most of the lessons learned are related to how to engage with fishers, and trust is the most important word here. So you need to build trust. You need to be with them, to work with them, to drink with them. It's important to identify what we call as a local champion, so somebody from them who is really willing to support and has the energy to work with you and work with others to convince the others that what we're doing is right. We learned that it's not good to talk about illegalities. They don't like fishing, illegal fishing, things like that. Well, try to find some other words to explain to them that maybe what they're doing is not that regular. Maybe there are other ways to do that. And yeah, it's important to keep them involved. So whenever you do activities, whatever project you do, make them participate, use their boats, use their efforts. So they understand that what they're doing is really useful, not for them, but also for the conservation. It's important, in our case, it was important to use this existing structure, like the Management Committee for Protected Areas was a forum that collected many of the stakeholders. So it was good to use that as a forum to discuss small-scale fishery issues. And interinstitutional cooperation is not for granted. I think this is accepted from all. Institutions normally don't like to cooperate, so it takes some time to make them sit together and talk together and exchange data, information, and experiences, so they understand that there is a lot of work to be done. Next step, we see that it will be good to have something like a formal organization of collecting together MPA managers, small-scale fish representatives, scientists, other institutions, to keep on going on this issue of small-scale fishery. And it's too much. And of course, to continue with training for fishers on various topics, particularly on improving their capacity on handling mobile species or other important species that end up in their nets. And also to work on improving the legal framework. So there is, at least with this action, we found a number of issues on our legal framework that need to be revised and improved. So that has to be followed up. Of course, this pilot action, I think, resonates or contributes or whatever, links to a number of recommendations, key recommendations from the policy paper related to small-scale fisheries. Of course, it's important to improve knowledge, as I said, in the expected results. So it's important to set up national programs to do that. It's important to develop this recreational fishery, so maybe licensing system should be in place. Legal framework, of course, has to be improved, already mentioned. And MPAs should be provided with tools and strategies to do regular monitoring of these activities. And of course, implementation of no-take zones to support the regeneration of fish stock is important. Also, this resonates to other recommendations at the regional level, like cost-effective monitoring protocols. We're already using some monitoring protocols already developed by other projects, like the Fish MPA Blue. So this kind of protocol should be shared among protected area managers to be used widely at regional contests. Training were mentioned well, not morning, but in the first session. A lot of trainings that are happening should be continued, and support the training to both MPA managers and other stakeholders should continue. So this is important. And this experience sharing and technical exchange, like what MedPan is doing. I think it's important. In terms of other fields, so for governance, of course, it's important to support this networks, collaborative networks, including both government and other stakeholders. And of course, related to mobile species recommendation, as we heard in the first session, it's important to product code of conduct for data sharing and collection of data. So this is all from this pilot action. I'd like to thank all of those who have worked and contributed. So first and most, I'd like to thank the managers of Protected Area, Lorela and her colleagues in Flora, that have done a great work, but also all the fishers which were supportive and collaborated in this action. And then thanks to MedPan who gave us this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we continue with another feedback on experience on fisheries, small-scale fishery in Portofino MPA. Valentina, here it is.
Okay, thank you, Phénia. Hello to everybody. I'm here to tell you something regarding our experience in Portofino MPA. Portofino MPA is an MPA placed in the northwestern side of Mediterranean Sea. Is the third smallest MPA in Italy, but is really full of activities. We have boating, scuba diving, professional and recreational fishery, and also cruisers. Actually, at the moment, we have 19 active fishermen. Regarding our pilot action, we focused our attention on the evaluation of the natural capital coming from the fishing sector. This in order to forecast, in order to evaluate the possibility to act future management strategies. In the action, we carried on two activities: the annual fishing harvest from a small-scale fishery and the evaluation of fishing fauna stock. Specifically, as MPA staff, we carried out data collection using three different methodologies. The first was a monitoring of landings. That was really important because represented a capitalization of a previous project called Fish MPA Blue 2. Then we realized also an experimental fishing trip, and we used also some logbooks coming from fishermen. For example, here I reported some data coming from the logbooks of Camoli fishermen in the west side of Portofino promontory. Regarding specifically the results of the natural capital, we'll give you a feedback tomorrow with the presentation of Lorenzo, a colleague of mine. But here I wanted to focus your attention on the methodology of the results of the methodology, because our methodologies permitted to keep on a strong indirect monitoring activity, but also to strengthen the collaboration with artisanal fishermen through also a direct monitoring activity on boat. In this specific last activity, we have had also the possibility to better understand and also evaluate the issues and the risks associated with the management measures regarding fishery. If we want to forecast, if you want to see to have a long-term vision, this approach could also help to protect marine habitats and fish stock, and also encourage the local fishermen to collaborate better with the MPA, especially against action of illegal fishing. What are the lessons learned and also key recommendation? In our activities, we encountered some difficulties. I have to admit this, because the activity required a big staff effort, especially in the case of the direct monitoring activity. So an option could be trying to carry on this direct monitoring activity on boat every 2 years, for example, while and also the landings monitorings, while the indirect monitoring activity, collecting data from the fisherman logbook, could be carried out every year. And in order to improve the activity, sometimes we have collaborated with the university, for example, the University of Genoa. In this case, the contribution of a student could be good support, could represent a good support. In this case, the students have to be introduced to the fishermen, and has also to be trained. So we have to arrange the situation. One of the big challenges is also trying to make the monitoring of small-scale fishery sustainable over time, so replicable and uninterrupted. Making also fishermen aware regarding the importance of data collection and historical data collection, and also making them aware regarding the importance of the involvement in the management of the MPA. In this case, a possible contribution could be represented by the technology, the application of technology. For example, I'm not have a big familiarity with technology, but also the simple use of WhatsApp, for example, could contribute to share the data reported by fishermen. Which are the enabling conditions to carry on this activity? A key is represented by having enough staff time to implement the activity. The staff, the MPA staff has to be available and also trained. Often is trained, but not always. And in my opinion, the most important key message that we want to convey is that the MPA has to be able to communicate in the right way with the fishermen. As Genti said before, when I usually say, if I have to talk with a diver, I have to be like a diver. If I have to talk with a fisherman, I have to be like a fisherman. I have to be a friend of him. I have to drink with him, and so we have to find the good way to communicate with stakeholders, not only fishermen in this case, but in general. And this is in order to create a real common vision regarding the MPA, so a real common vision regarding conservation. So I think that it's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. So drink, but without abuse it. We don't want an alcoholic anonymous group. Okay, and next one will be feedback this time on an activity on training, diver training. It's an online presentation from Fabio Figuerella. So I have a look here on the back. I hope
Yes, I am.
God is with us.
I am here. You can hear me?
Okay, I'll let the floor. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you all. I am very sorry because I can't able to be there with all of you, but I will come in Barcelona for the political event. I am Fabio Figuerella, and I am the representative for DAN Europe in MPA Engage project. I am the coordinator of DAN Europe European team. And I am also the PADI regional manager for Italy. So I manage something like 200 diving centers in Italy. So in this quick presentation, I want to present you the pilot action of citizen science inside and in the framework of MPA Engage project. So we start, I know 5 years ago, Kim Garabo in Lampedusa from a presentation of the previous, sorry, you can start with the first. Oh, wow. The first slide, please. Yes, I know King Garabo in Lampedusa 5 years ago, and
excuse me, just if you say next slide, I can change it in the meeting room. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, right. So I know King Garabo and Ernesto Azzurro 5 years ago in Lampedusa during their previous Interreg MPA Adapt, and we start to talk about the idea to involve recreational diver in the climate change action in citizen science action. And then we was involved as partner with DAN Europe in the new Interreg that is MPA Engage. Next slide, please. So University of Marche is the leader of this action. I mean, the citizen science action. So thanks to the help with Carlo Serrano and the University of Marche, we was supported as DAN Europe in cooperation with PADI, that is the largest organization in the world in terms of training courses on scuba diving. And the main goal was to create and build a training program named Basic Research Operator, because from the previous experience done in MPA Adapt, we understood that in order to involve divers and citizen science action, the main topics was training. So training is really, really important in order to involve diving center, diving operator, and divers collecting data on climate change in general in citizen science action. So in these years, in the framework of MPA Engage project, we built this kind of program. MPA Engage partners has supported our in testing and implementation of this citizen science action, and the project decided to insert 3 of the 10 protocols in order to give them to the divers and the citizens and create citizen science action. The protocols are, the first is visual census, the second is mass mortality, and the third is the pen shell protocols. So with this idea, we can build the training program. Next slide, please. So during this work inside the MPA Engage project, we create, as DAN Europe in cooperation with PADI, 2 different specialties training program. The first is PADI DAN Basic Research Diver, is an open box on citizen science. In this program is a training program. The minimum level is open water diver, so it's a basic level in order to engage any kind of level, divers level, so beginners. And the training is related to theory part, with a large part on climate change, MPAs, and whatever. The DAN research, citizen science, I mean the data collection of the dive profile in order to help DAN Europe, that is the safest organization around the world in terms to help divers in general. And then with a lot of workshop, I mean confined water workshop, dry workshop, and 2 open water divers with 2 different protocols, we train the instructor and diving operators in order to engage divers and create this kind of training program. Then in the second phase of the project, we understood and realized, thanks to the help also from Ernesto Azzurro, that also the snorkeler can be part of this great idea to engage citizens to collect data on climate change, especially with a visual census protocol. So we can build the second training program that is named the Snorkel Research Operator, and this can help us to involve a lot of citizens and engage a lot of new citizens, not only divers, but any kind of citizen can be with a mask and fin, a snorkel, to become snorkeler and collect some data. Obviously, the program is again a training program in order to understand and training the snorkeler how to recognize the species, how to collect the transect, how to collect the data. Next slide, please. Next, please. Okay. So our methodology was, okay, in the first part of the project, we can create this kind of program, and then we can, in the work package free, to test the program, thanks to the MPA's partner of the project. In 2020, we can organize some events, 5 events, in MPA's partner of the project, normal partner and associated partner like Casinara MPA or Ustic MPA, and some partner like Portofino, Tavolare MPA. So in this event, obviously the challenge was the COVID. So we have created a contingency plan in order to train a small group of people, because in 2020 COVID affect every kind of task and objectives. But we start with the first event in Tavolare, and then in other MPA like Casinara, Portofino, Ustica. And the main goal was test the program and training diving operators and sometimes also MPA managers. So in this year, we can create 70 more or less instructor that was trained in this training program in order to engage divers and create this kind of training. In the second year of the project, 2021, we can exploiting these events, and we can create some tour named the Climate Change Days Tour. So the second step was capitalizing the work with the diving operators in the first year and the test of the program. We can engage divers in a lot of city in the Mediterranean. So I mean MPAs, partner of the project, or out of the project, or some other area like WP5, in order to capitalize the idea to engage any kind of divers or snorkelers to collect the data. The tour was a big success, and we can involve like 300, some more or less divers in 15 events during 2021 Climate Change Days Tour, with a marketing operation in order to create a business model for the diving operators and the diving center in order to create this kind of citizen science action. Next slide, please. So obviously, this kind of event allow us to create training workshop, I mean theory workshop with the scientists like Ernesto or Kim or Carlo, that explain the protocols and the tools in order to recognize species. And we, as instructor and trainer, trained the instructor and the divers in order to collect the data in the water with mass mortality protocol, with the free protocol of the project. I mean, visual sensors is the best, mass mortality and time shell. And as Paddy and Dan, we can create some communication tools like visuals in the social media, live interview during this kind of climate change days tour, in order to collect some experience from divers, and the divers was very happy on this idea to have a role in order to help the ocean and save the ocean in the climate change action in the Mediterranean. Next slide. Some key lessons learned. During these years, we learn a lot. I am really happy for this experience, and I want to thank all the partners of MPA Engage project, because we realized some key point, and probably this key point will help all of us to exploiting this experience in the next years in order to collect a lot of citizens on climate change and citizen science collection on other topics. So the key points that we learned, this citizen science needs training for sure. So in order to engage someone to collect any kind of data, we need to create a training in terms of tool, training programs, boards, whatever. And we realized that citizen science work obviously in a large scale, engage citizens. And the most important goal of the citizen science is not only the data collection, I mean, help scientists in order to have some trends or others, but in my opinion, the big and huge opportunity and goal of citizen science is improve the awareness of the citizens in general. For example, in this project, in the specific topic of climate change. Another big lesson learned is that citizens needs to receive feedback. So I would thank CSIC to create Observatoire de Mar. It is a very huge opportunity and platform in order to give feedback to the divers. So the divers was engaged in training, but if they don't receive any feedback, probably they stopped collecting data and they have only one-step experience. But the idea to involve divers in a platform like Observatoire de Mar, to put their observation inside the platform and have this kind of visibility, they can share it in the social media, they can share this experience, is a really, really key point. So this is a big lesson learned. In the picture that you can see in the slide, we have Ustica Marine Parks, that is associated partner of MPA Engage project, and we have a really, really involved diving center that is Mare Nostrum Diving Center. So they collect 150 transect on visual sensors protocol in these events. And obviously we learned that it will be in the future, probably a new business model for the diving operators in the future that can sell probably citizen science training program or citizen science dives or citizen science cruise or whatever. Next slide. So at the end of the story, we have created an e-learning platform, obviously in order to help diving operators to engage divers. So we put all these materials, I mean, student manual, tutorials, a board, and whatever in an e-learning platform that is working with a great and huge success. You can see in the slide some numbers. We can have right now 323 divers involved in e-learning on citizen science program. We can assign 890 tests or works task with the learning program. So the platform was launched 4 or 5 months ago. Is right now is in we finished the beta test, and it will be a really huge tools in order to capitalize this pilot action, and probably in the future can involve other citizens. The good news in these days is that we are receiving a lot of requests for diving operators around Europe. So 2 weeks ago, at the end of May, we went again in Spain, and we trained 25 new instructors that asked us to be involved in this kind of training. And right now we are receiving some requests from Malta, Turkey, Israel, because probably the diving community, diving operators community, want to use this kind of tools in the future in order to train divers and collect citizen science action and data, especially for the climate change. So next slide, I think is the last one. Thanks for the attention, and I am very sorry to cannot be able to be there with all of you, but I will arrive in Barcelona for the political event. Thank you.
Grazie Fabio, grazie. Okay, so we had 3 pilot sites and feedback from experiencing this on the ground. Experience, well, pilot sites. So now I would like to invite Zafer for the presentation on training inputs.
Hello. Actually, there is no presentation, just 2 slides. But let me remind you something. Maybe you know, maybe you have forgotten, maybe you have neglected. In 2021, September, United Nations General Assembly proclaimed 2022 as a year of artisanal fishery. So this year is small-scale fisheries year. What we have done, I wish we could have done, or we could organize something exactly emphasizing all the problems, feature of small-scale fisheries in Mediterranean. Last week, there was an international seminar in Istanbul from all over the world. People came to discuss this issue. The topic of this roundtable is small-scale fisheries and recreational fisheries activities in and around the MPA. So we may have not noticed, but right now the major problem of small-scale fisheries all around the world is recreational fisheries. So let me go ahead and let's talk about the training program first, and I will go back to the subject again. So we have 5 thematic training cycles, and one of them is about small-scale fisheries management, or all fisheries management related activities, which is being organized 2 weeks ago in Gökova Bay. How many of you have been attained those activities? Is there anybody here attained Gökova? Okay. So we technically, many MPA managers paired with a small-scale fishers from that MPA came to Gökova. About this training, thematic training activities, every single MPA you've seen on this map has a big role in the preparation of that training activity. So it is not something like, okay, you are welcoming to Gökova, we are organizing logistics, and that's the training. It is not. So every single MPA on every single thematic training just actively preparing the training sessions and presentations, and also give important contribution to what their MPA is exactly related with that thematic training. So Gökova Bay is well-known successful example about small-scale fisheries and MPA management. So that's why Gökova Bay MPA has been selected for small-scale fisheries training. And in this 5 training center, in the future, we will have more trainings on exactly more or less on the same thematic issues. So I had a good news from Pierre today that in the future, also it's going to be in the website of MedPan, a joint training catalog. So what training activities is going to be planned, how you can apply. So technically and all those sessions will be repeated because for the Gökova case, more than 30 people applied. So the number of people accepted is something, around 20 plus the trainers plus fishers. So that means there is a big demand for the training activities. People would like to attend the training activities, would like to get knowledge of that subject. So, okay, here is in small-scale fisheries training. 28 participant MPA managers, fishers train in pairs from 9 countries. So in the future, we would like to increase this diversity. More countries, probably representing every single Mediterranean country, every single MPA from each country will attain every single training activities. That will bring us more, closer. We know the idea of which MPA in what part of Mediterranean have such kind of or different issues that we need to discuss. But let's go back to this training activity. In one of the evening, all the participants went to a beautiful restaurant along the river. And at that day, before they arrived there, I stopped that restaurant. There were 3 fish on the display. One is Dentex ibobus. It is an Eastern Mediterranean species of big Dentex. It was 10 kilos. I have never seen that big before. And there was a big Seriola, which is 12 kilos. And there is one Labrax, which is 9 kilos. That is one of the largest Labrax I have ever seen. And the restaurant owner is a very nice guy. And he's very supportive of our activities. He said he got all those 3 fishes, one of his friends, who is recreational. So I asked how much he spent for the fish. He said he spent for 3 fish 2,250 euros, and he's expecting to sell them more than 4,000 euros. So none of the small-scale fishers in Gökova could have any ability, any kind of boat, engine, or fishing gear to catch those fishes. But in law, it says that every single recreational fisher can catch up to 5 kilos per day. So there is no way you can monitor this. And there is no way that restaurant could get such great quality and big fishes from small-scale fishers. So last week in Istanbul, what has been discussed about this problem, small-scale fisheries and recreational fishers? Everybody is agree, which is very harsh. We have to assign fishing grounds for recreational fishers. And the rest is closed for entire recreational fishers, just for artisanal fishers. It's all depending on how big is the palma, where the small-scale fishers are going, what is their favorite grounds. They should be closed for recreational fishers. Otherwise, in the next 20 years, we won't see any small-scale fishers 100% dependent on fisheries. They're just going extinct. They are as endangered as many of the animals we are talking about. Do we want small-scale fishing? Yes, because it's culturally thousands of years old. Probably one of the oldest professions have been done in Mediterranean coasts. So if we still want them, we have to stop something. We have to give more management activities in terms of saving their rights. So what we have done in 2022 as a MedPan for Year of Artisanal Fisheries. Okay, we had a great training in Gökova, but this is only for 28 participants. What else can we do for the rest of the year? We have still 6 months ahead. So I suggest here in this year's MedPan workshop in Montenegro, maybe we will have a kind of more emphasis on this. We will prepare a film. We will bring more small-scale fisheries representing different countries. And at the end of the day, the missing people, as I mentioned, from Minister of Agriculture, they are not being part of the film. They never had any idea small-scale fisheries has any problem at all, because they don't care. Because there are big lobbies from, purseaners, trawlers, other, aquaculture industries. They're just coming and pushing so much hard, as well as recreational fisheries. They're all well-educated people. They're all, wealthy people. They have amazing boats. They don't care about making money or not, but they would like to catch big fish. They could. So they have a bigger lobby too. The only people the lobbies could not have that big voice are the small-scale fishers. So, we need to give more incentive. How to do it? We have to reach the level of ministries because they don't want to hear their voice. This is exactly what is happening. To give an answer to Ali's question about the invasive species, what to do then? In Turkey, certain areas, including Gökova Bay MPA, more than 60% of each catch of small-scale fishers are just invasives. Mostly lionfish, rabbitfish, soldierfish, the others. And we have a big project over 2 years. We are buying unconditionally every single invasive species they are bringing. We are cleaning them, we are packing them, we are freezing them. And right now, 78 restaurants all over the country, they are all fine dining restaurants. You cannot go without making a reservation, very high-end chefs. They have special recipes from each this species. And every week, we are just selling hundreds of kilos of those invasive species to high-end restaurants. So they're making amazing recipes with this fish. Last year, even though there was a COVID and half of the year restaurants were closed, we sold almost 2.5 tons of lionfish to the restaurants in the high-end level. So this is getting a big market right now. And when I was sitting in the first round on that table, I got a message. And you don't believe that the president of Turkey would like to taste lionfish, they said. And how could I supply to the palace a lionfish? So this is a kind of good sign. That means he even heard about invasive species problem. So that's going to be a kind of good, leverage for us. So we should reach higher level of people for all other issues, including the small-scale fisheries. So, and we have to make a kind of special session sometime to discuss about this recreational fisheries. What is recreational fisheries? How big it's gonna get? What is the damage of recreational fishing on MPA, on benthic fish, on pelagic fish? It is huge. We never talk about this because there are millions. We cannot monitor them. We cannot count them. Nobody can control them. How many MPAs have the license for recreational fisheries? Do we have? How can we control them? Do we get any profit out of those people for the management of MPAs? Not in all, maybe 1 or 2. So we need to discuss all these issues further. Just getting these subjects to our next training session here, because this is a big problem in all Mediterranean and all the rest of the world. So let's finish with the objective: provide managers and fishers with key knowledge and skills, as well as tools to improve trust and start working cooperatively on addressing complex issues facing fisheries in MPAs with effects both on natural resources and the viability of fishing communities. So Pierre told me some really interesting things about his, training activity memories last week from Gökova. So he said that he was very successful with getting communication with the small-scale fishers coming from all other different countries. So it's a kind of very, unitive activity. So I hope we will get a better report from you, Pierre, or in the website. Then we could read and how could we improve those. So none of the trainings we had done so far is perfect. We have just started. We are trying our best. We are learning during the training sessions. So there is always room for improvement. So every training session, anything in your mind that we should include, that should we discuss, please send us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I look at Pierre. Do you want to make it now, or do we take question and answers later? Okay. Can I have another, this one? Okay. So, oh, do we have, yeah, insights from networks? So this is about the questions. Yes? So are there in the room or online some questions on these presentations before we move forward with some discussion on recommendations for the policy brief? Yes.
Yes, specifically about the presentation done Paddy, that was really very interesting, but I have a query about that. What about the validation of the data they are collecting? Because they are going to use those data, those sensors. So is there any scientific validation of those data to be used for further purpose?
Fabio?
Because it's a key point.
Yeah.
It's a key point because
this is a really good point.
There is no continuity. So if we can use them, I can imagine that there is a process, that there is a way to validate them and to use them for another purpose that could be for awareness of decision makers, as an example.
So is Fabio online? Can he?
Yes, I am. You can hear me? Yes. This is, thanks for this question. This is a really...
Everybody can see him, it would be nice.
Yeah. So this is a really, thanks for the question. This is a really good point. And I agree with you. Validation is really, really important for the data. And this is the reason why we inside in our training program have created the only protocol with the validation committee. For example, the free protocols from MPA Engage are putting from the divers in Observador del Mar. That is a platform, as you know, managed from the National Council of Spain. And every diver can put some data inside, but there is a scientific committee that validates data, and the protocol, also the protocol is validated for the project. In our training program, we can insert the other protocols, but our philosophy is insert only protocol that have some kind of validation. I mean, scientific validation. For example, we work with Professor Carlos Serrano from University of Marca and Reef Check organization, and we have inserted the other protocol like Reef Check Nexo or something like that, that are validated from scientists. And as the same with Sea Sentinel program, this is another Italian project managed from University of Bologna and Professor Stefano Goffredo. And it's the same, there's a slate validated from scientists. So every kind of data that we can insert in our training program have this kind of validation. Obviously, you are right. Validation is so important because without any kind of validation, it's very difficult to use data. Otherwise, there is the huge opportunity to use divers to collect data. Because, for example, we as PADI in a worldwide scale have 29 million of divers. and million of snorkelers. So the idea behind is engage and using these sentinels or observers that can go in the water, and thanks for the protocols built from the scientists and validated from the scientists, collect some data on every kind of topics like climate change or mass mortality or dive against the breeze or whatever. And I think that it is so important in the future.
Okay, thank you. We have a question over there.
We had several. I didn't see who raised hands first, but
yeah, I can add. I'm Lorenzo Merotto from Portofino MPA. I can add one thing about validation of data. In 21, we did a lot of training with recreational divers with the protocols of MPA Engage. And at the end of the season in November, October, we did several meetings with the participants to these activities. And we take the data from Observadores del Mar, and we compare with the data on mortality assessment in specific, in particular, with the data taken by us as MPA staff and the University of Genoa. And we saw that more or less the different categories of damage on the Gorgonia, for example, the slice of the cake of the graph were more or less the same. So I was very happy about this because, yeah, there was a validation in the platform, but this is the validation of our validation, because we did the protocols, the monitoring in the same sites and more or less in the same period. And the data were perfectly, not perfectly, but are the same. They are comparable. So I think that it was a good result. For sure, you need a lot of effort to train the divers, but we have almost 50 well-trained divers. And in all the trainer, we involve more or less 100 divers. So half of them demonstrate that they are able to do monitoring protocols quite well. So it's
a good test.
Yeah, good test.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this
thank you,
introduction.
Lorenzo. Francesco, I think you're next.
Oh, there was another one on the behind, but afterwards. Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Francesco De Franco from MPA of Torre Goceto. I want just to make a little consideration about the threats coming from the recreational fishing for the artisanal fishermen. I think that the problem is not the recreational fisher as fisher, but it's coming from a weak legal framework from recreational fishing, because when you have problems coming from recreational fishing, your problems coming from illegal fishing, because the more threats coming from a bad use of the permits of recreational fisher. So we need not to have an enemy as the recreational fisher, but we need to recommend to have a more an enforcement of the law, the legal framework of recreational fishermen, and we have more surveillance on this type of activities. An example: we are involved in a process of enlargement of the MPA, and we tried to involve the recreational fishers in this process. And we had very many problems to know who are the recreational fishers. So we need to have a high level of attention on this type of activities, and having registration, licensing, training also for the recreational fisher, because it's not a problem as recreation, but is a problem when it's illegal activities. And in the 19% of the case is an illegal activities, because there is a selling of the fish. There is no level of catching level. There is no respect of the catching levels. And consider that now the capacity of the recreational fisher, excuse me, but I coming from 8 hours of airplane. So the capacity of the recreational fishers to catch is very high. They are trained for this. They have a high level of expenses on tools. So their fishing effort is very high. So we need to have a more effective legal framework on this type of activities, because another example, my fishermen inside the MPA and another recreational fishing with a boat outside the MPA, the Coast Guard goes to the artisanal fishermen to control the permits, the licensing, and all the fishing gears, and not the recreational fishing, because they don't know how to approach this type of activity. So we needed to define very well our enemy is not the recreational fisher, but is the weakness of the legal framework of the recreational fishing and the legal activities coming from this.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have already a path to some recommendations, and there is another one in behind.
Yeah, thank you. Really, the question is answered by
Wonderful.
Francesco now, but really I'm just add something for the fishermen and the fishers in general. I was asking about the main challenge and the main problems that happened with the projects everywhere in the 3 or 4 presentation, which is really an excellent presentation, and thank you for all presenters. And the question was about the problems, the main problem that you have faced during this project, and how you can resolve this problem, because we know as well the fishermen and the local community, they are the key of the MPA. So we need how we can deal with them and how we can discuss with them to sometimes we should involve them in the management plan of the MPA. So there are many ways to involve the fishermen with us, and sometimes some problem like what happened there with the artisanal fishermen, and there are another one, recreational fishermen. So they control the artisanal one and they don't care about others. So it will make a big challenge and a big problem for the MPA managers there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So maybe now, Pierre, I can. Okay, another one.
We have another question.
You tell me
Thank
how
you,
much
Mokhtar.
time you will need. So it's
the
okay.
microphone will go very close from Libya to Lebanon.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So all these activities, all these kind of protocols are perfect. We are talking about MPA network. So connection, communication is so important. For me, as a small recommendation is like to homogenize all these kind of protocols, do a protocol standardize, and share it with all the MPA, so they can try to maybe try to do this kind of activities and protocols on their MPA, because every country, it's known that it's have its own regulation, its own laws. It's not about ministries or anything else. Sometimes municipality can take some regulation and it's okay. For example, in Till Coast Nature Reserve, we decide to interdire. Okay, that's one. The jet ski, to protect, for example, marine turtle. So we didn't wait about any kind of protocol with ministries or something like this. So my point of view is also the scientific data, sharing the scientific data and validate this protocol and activity are so important. because in some MPAs it can be like good, for other no. So this kind of mentality we should like about sharing, communication is important, and we know that every one of us have his own project and it is ongoing, I think, and this kind of project we should try like to find like some connectivity with this project. It's important because this project gives us also a lot of data and a lot of protocols that we can see. That's it, just a small comment. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ellie.
It changes the focus. So, Pierre, please.
Okay.
Let's see if we are already with many things in our bags with all these comments.
Okay.
And I have a question for tonight dinner because we don't have time, but I will be so pleased if you can tell me some feedbacks from fishermen following these activities, that positive feedback and what reactions you had, etc. If you can tell me the story tonight, would be great. Now we don't have the time. It's
okay.
Just
I thought that you were going to ask if we would have some lionfish on the menu tonight. No.
I don't have these connections. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Pierre Vigne. I'm working as MPA support manager for the MedPan Secretariat. And well, like in the previous roundtable, we will last part of the session will be about sharing with you some policy recommendations that have been here summarized in a very brief, short formulation. To share them with you, again, it's not only a matter of prioritization, it's also to get your inputs, to complement, to know what we should push in the forthcoming policy event that will be happening on Thursday in Barcelona. So this roundtable was about fisheries, was about governance, was about recreation and tourism. So here we have like 3 different colors. The first, the blue one, are about fisheries, a little less blue, but still blue, are about governance, and the green are about tourism. Well, I guess that Zafer, and not only Zafer, Francesco, made a strong point already about recreational fisheries that are often, and well, not only them, because indeed this was, again, one of the discussions that was very prevalent when we had this training 2 weeks ago in Gokova, with fishers and with MPA managers. And like in all the meetings we had over the years, I remember here in 2018, having this workshop, experience sharing workshop on fisheries, we always come back to this discussion. And indeed, what do we get from the MPA managers? What do we get from the fishing communities? Is that indeed recreational fisheries are under-regulated, where we know from their feedback that very often the quantities that are harvested are sometimes, at least for some of the main target species, very comparable to those of the small-scale fisheries. So I guess here is not so much a discussion on this, it's just to know what is the way forward, because it's not only a matter of impact on the resource, it's also a matter that has to do with governance. When talking about trust with small-scale fishers, if the treatment to the one and the other is not the same, it's a problem also in terms of governance. So here is this recommendation indeed to set up national license system for recreational fisheries that in MPAs are in some countries, but not everywhere. The second recommendation is to set up national programs to improve knowledge on fishing efforts. Efforts here is plural, which should be understood again on not only trying to increase knowledge on the fishing effort of the small scale or professional fisheries, but should certainly also include better knowledge on the fishing effort from the recreational fisheries also. Define and update all the new techniques gear that should be banned from MPAs. Here we, of course, should think that it's certainly much needed wherever is under-regulated again to better address some very destructive techniques, whether they are like bottom trawlings that still can be occurring in certain MPAs, or technical innovations that are boosting the impact of the recreational fishing, such as tracking technologies, for example. combat poaching and illegal resale of fishing catches, which is again, not only, but pretty much connected with recreational fisheries reselling illegally the catches. There was the story from Zafer, but I think you all have stories on this locally, and which is a huge and recurrent problem everywhere. That is here again, of course, having a tremendous impact on the resource, but that has also an impact on the already fragile economy of the small-scale fisheries. And basically also, that is a very big problem for all those that are respecting the rules. Improve legal framework to support fishers' participation in MPA management. So when talking about what was the focus of the training that was presented before, where we are talking about building participatory approaches towards the management of fishing activities in your MPA, not to say co-management, because again, co-management is certainly, there are several possible gradients to co-management, going from a consultative involvement to involvement in decision-making processes, but is certainly one of the key. Well, very much connected and going for more like governance recommendations that are here, support the elaboration of regional guidelines on co-management and participatory governance arrangements for national system of MPAs is again about like the need for shared governance, for co-management, for participatory approaches, looking at the very ambitious 30% targets that are set for the post-2020 period. Let's make it clear. We'll not do this without the people. It's not possible. There is no other way. So here is real need for improving. Develop strategy and action plan for gender equity and MPA governance. Gender equity is a real issue that needs to be addressed at all the stages of the MPA governance. We were talking about this again in this training on fisheries. It's just an example. But you know, when talking about small-scale fisheries, we are talking about like small family business-based, where the women fishers may not be as much as sea fishing than their husband fisher, but they are the one often selling the fish. And in doing this, they have a knowledge that their man doesn't have. They have the knowledge and the perception from the customers. They are selling the fish to the customers. And it's very important to push certainly this also. And then, of course, in MPAs, we are talking a lot about fisheries. But it's not only about fisheries. We know that like tourism all around the Med is a source of impact that is incredibly important for many of the MPAs. So here are a set of recommendations that are more targeted towards tourism and also ecotourism. The first one is to support, promote, and embed citizen science in MPAs as an ecotourism product. Ecotourism may not weight much in comparison with prevalent mass tourism we have around the basin, but still, it is the fastest developing sector within tourism itself. So here is certainly an opportunity to also help promoting, for example, citizen sciences. Undertake review of legal frameworks to support an integrated approach of sustainable nature-based tourism. Here we are with this recommendation in the usual issue of conservation versus local development. But when it's about legal frameworks, we know that like part of the issue is really about trying to review legal frameworks to avoid conflicting regulations that are hampering the conservation objectives of the MPAs. Support climate smart and carbon neutral touristic infrastructures, as well as circular economy schemes, where MPAs can certainly act as a promoter locally also to push for this. Expand regional cooperation between EU and non-EU countries for marine and coastal nature-based tourism. And I go a little fast on the two last that are very much connected. The last one is to support MPA involvement in the co-implementation of the brand new EU Commission transition pathway for tourism. Here is the set of recommendations for your comments, ideas, inputs, reactions that are welcome now.
Thank you very much. I think that all this indication in policy paper, many years ago when we started to with the policy, the sustainable policy, should be some ideal of a few people that think strange, think for a future that had never been. But now I think we are here. And nothing that you write in this paper is impossible. And maybe all of this is now. So we have to understand how we can implement it, how we can improve it, how we can run, because now we don't have a problem with the instrument, but we have not much time to arrive. And so we have to run. Then now we, in this action, spoke about awareness and responsibility, more or less, for fishermen and for tourism, for diving and so on. And so this is the really important thing, because it changed a little bit our the thing that we can use to improve, because there are many years that the children listen something about environment, unfortunately, and many people think to know that what is climate change, but they really don't know really. But and so this is important, the important role of technician and local regional government and administration, because we have to say something more. The thing that what I think is we have to convince people, and the word is communication too, because we don't speak about communication. We have to convince people that every one of us can do something to improve and to arrive at results. And every one of us, because often we spoke about politician, policymaker, government, and so on, but now it's every one of us. It's our responsible when the consumer have a choice at the fisher market, on the restaurant, decide the menu to propose to their own tourism, and so on. It's shared. The responsibility now, it's more shared, and we need to improve communication, an effort to communication, because often the communication try to be afraid for the phenomena, but not to improve our responsibility to do something. I think that in our experience, Regione Liguria, we try to different projects to improve market and enterprise, fishing with the marine area protectors and so on, to move this level. And I think this is really, really important. Also because the communication often define what the politician think to do. It's complicated to speak in English for me, but and so communication is a little bit behind us. Tell just there is a danger, there is a problem, and so on, but not about there is a solution. And so I think we have to awareness this point of view.
Thank you very much. And of course, it's something we will take note of. And I think can be quite agreed that governance, as shared responsibilities, certainly pretty much overarching recommendation in the set of recommendations, where communications toward like what are MPAs as like shared territories for stakeholders that have like shared responsibilities or should have whenever like there are needs also to improve legal frameworks to better allow this shared governance is certainly something that needs to be promoted.
Lorenzo Merotto from Portofino MPA. With Pierre, we've discussed very, from, I don't know, 5 years that thing, but I think that he know that for me, the recreational fisheries in the MPA in general is the biggest problem, not only because they are in contrast with artisanal fishermen, professional fishermen, but because their damage on the bottoms, on the bentos, not bentonic species of itic bentonic species, but for example, on Gorgonian and K species for the habitat. And I think that maybe we have to approach them, not like a group of people with fishing rod, but like a very powerful lobby, like not the oil lobby for sure, but at least the travel net lobby, because they work at all the level. On local level, for example, in the MPA, we have 19 artisanal fishermen and 200.5 licensed, because then there are the poachers. So on the local level, we have 20 artisanal fishermen that vote the measure and 200.5 that vote. So it's more simple for the measure that manage, for example, the MPA, take some decision against the artisanal fishermen than the recreational. And for example, at the national level, in fresh water, not in salt water, the National Association of the in Italy of artisanal fishermen are allowed to introduce alien species in fresh water in order to catch them. So I think that we have a problem very, very big, and I think that maybe I don't know how, but in the policy paper have to be highlighted it's this part, that we are not talking about a small power, but a very big power and a very big problem for the ecosystem in general.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
Okay. Yeah, it's difficult not to comment on that. Just, I would like to suggest, because, you know, there are recommendations, so you will prioritize them. But it's a little bit strange suddenly to say set up national license system for recreational fisheries. If you, in this sentence, you could also explain in order to have a rational or coherent management of fisheries. Because if else, you know, it's, you say, okay, I want that, but we know that behind there are some also interests on the other side. So you have to explain why you want that. Suddenly, you decide that it's important. So just maybe it should be interesting to precise.
We'll make sure, Laurent, as I said earlier, this is a very like summarized version of the actual recommendations, but anyhow, you're totally right that it should be backed with some evidence-based rationale on for each of the recommendation, of course.
Okay, my name is Dusan Varda. I'm from NGO Medicine from Montenegro. Now something completely different. I'm maybe getting boring with insisting on one thing, but I think it's a 0.6 in the first row. I will be shortly as 0.6, as I said, support elaboration of regional guidelines and so national and international system, you know. The point that I'm maybe getting boring, boring you with the same problem, always pointing at one thing, and this is creating MPAs beyond the national border, or the MPAs in the international water, or the cross-border MPAs and things that we must consider, because without it, we will never reach the 30% of protection and other things. So nothing is done exactly to support those creation of international MPAs. We don't have any kind of how should I say, official support for, although there are a lot of initiatives and things like that, but we should, I think that maybe with just adding those national and international, we should somehow push forward those ideas about those future MPAs that will be created in the international waters or wherever.
Thank you, Dusan. You're right that transboundary MPAs are a type and an issue of participatory governance also. Not sure if it should be in this, incorporated in this recommendation, or be maybe another one. I don't know. It's maybe something really to think of, but absolutely.
I had one comment, Pierre. Yes, Romain from MedFund. Yes, when you say the sentence support, promote citizen science in MPAs as an ecotourism product. To me, I'm not completely comfortable with this sentence, because MPAs are not ecotourism product. We have to keep that in mind. I mean, there is only 8% of the Mediterranean Sea that is benefiting from protection. So meaning that there is 92% that are not benefiting from any protection. So why we should also focus tourism into our 8% of MPAs? So we have to be very cautious on that, and I'm not comfortable in this sentence. In fact, sometimes we are not here, I would say, just to promote ecotourism as such. We have to try to limit the damage done by the so-called ecotourism, because now everything is ecotourism around the Mediterranean Sea. And this is the first world destination. It will increase in the years to come. So we have to be very cautious on that and keep in mind that MPAs are tools to preserve ecosystems. That's it. And then when you have ecotourism, you have to deal with that. So you have just to support the activities, trying to minimize the damage they could do. But there is no like 100% ecotourism product.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Phénia. I have a general comment. What I see missing here from both this, I tend to say this morning, but from the previous session to now, there is no language in the policy paper about funding, about money. And
that's a plan for tomorrow.
Okay, because we know we are talking about things that go beyond MPA management. Yeah, we are talking about recreational fishery, we're talking about small-scale fishery, about tourism and ecotourism, and we talk about mobile species and whatever, climate change. This needs money. Yeah? So maybe we should put some recommendations about who is funding this.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. This is a plan for tomorrow's session. So we'll be talking about financing, of course. You should not forget this.
Don't worry, funding will have to do everything. So
it would be terrible to go home and say, oh, but we totally forgot to talk about funding.
Yeah.
Tommy?
Just maybe if I can address the comment made by Roman. Sorry, I'm sorry. So just maybe to address the comment that you made on the ecotourism, and to clarify, because of course here you see some sentences and you don't see the entire rationale behind them. So it's sometimes misleading and yes, raising concerns and some uncomfortable. The idea here was not to generate additional pressure in MPA, promoting additional products and promoting the development of additional activities. No, it was more about diverting the focus of, let's say, visitors that are anyway, they're visiting MPAs. Anyway, in many areas, MPAs are a tourism attraction, okay? But instead of I don't know, building new infrastructure, water parks, or I don't know what, and, you know, becoming more impactful on the MPAs to promote activities like this, light activities, citizen science, something about within the concept of the science ocean decade. This was the rationale behind this activity. So maybe the term product was a bit misleading.
This is how
commercial.
I understood it as you did, but I think Romain's point, I think when we come to recommendations like this, it's certainly always good to clarify and repeat that MPA's primary purpose is nature conservation, of course.
We finished on that.
Yeah, just to say that citizen science is not about ecotourism product. It could be something else. There are people living in the protected area that are doing this citizen science. So it's not about, it could be something specific, but generally it's not that. It's not the idea. The idea is really about citizen science. It could be also scholars. It could be whatever you can imagine.
First, I know Tommy want to respond.
Imagine how many millions of tourism contributing to data for MPAs.
Just a word. I agree with the sentence that MPA have a role to protect this. But I think that to protect these areas is the place in which we can demonstrate that a model of sustainable development is possible. And so it's like a training in a way that it can go away and become the model also for out of the area. And so I think that this sentence means this meaning has no method. It's not important to implement, but to demonstrate that it's possible a sustainable way to manage the tourism. And we can do it in the protected areas. It's difficult in the other one. In protected areas, we have managed this in better.
Yes, to me, I hear it not as a promotion of ecotourism, but more as how to use ecotourism for helping providing data through citizen science, but needs to be clarified, certainly. Yeah. It's just a short version, maybe also.
So I'm bad cop, and I finish now the session now.
Costanza just raised hand.
No, organizers told me with big eyes we have to finish.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. So I sincerely thank you all for your contributions, for our speakers and all the attendees here. We had great contributions to these suggestions. I don't know if people can send emails to comment that afterwards.
I don't know what is planned actually about this. If colleagues can help me, is it possible to send and comment via emails? Carol will clarify this.
And we will get precision on that. I would like also to thank you, the online attendees, for being patient, and it's not always easy to follow behind a screen. So thank you very much for your interest.
Thank you so much. No, any change are warmly welcome, but think about our next steps. So this workshop is very important because we wanted to have your input in order to see if you agree with the recommendation. If you have any ideas or any suggestion in terms of wording, please do it but before tomorrow evening, because on Thursday morning, we are supposed to present an updated version. Having said that, if you cannot, if you don't have time, yes, in Barcelona on Thursday morning. As Marie mentioned, Barcelona meeting is one step. We will have other opportunities to take into account your comments, but it would be definitely great if you could share your input, your ideas before tomorrow evening, because I will work tomorrow evening on updating this. So if you could do it, that would be great. Thank you.
So I was supposed to make a wrap up of the day today, I have many things, but I think I will maybe kill you before the night. So I see the time. So maybe I would like to take the words from Kim. I like very much, where is Kim now? Kim, that the MPA are the lighthouse, you know, guiding the society. I like very much. And today we discuss a lot about this, those lighthouses connected together, but also connected with other stakeholders. We mentioned a lot today. So of course we took good notes of everything you say today. And we will include this not only in the policy paper, but also the technical recommendation that you mentioned in your presentation, in your comments as well. And maybe now I would like to say, sorry. So I don't know if we present you and all the work.
Yeah, this is Yorgos here that has been working, who has been working with us this whole afternoon. He's been his profession is called graphic harvester. So he's capturing the main ideas that are being discussed and he's drawing them. We will be sharing these drawings with you, of course. So he's done a few of them. One for the introduction, Roundtable 1 and Roundtable 2. So we will have the pleasure of having him tomorrow and also in Barcelona and for dinner tonight as well. And if you want to add something.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add a point to your reflections, because we're talking about the Mediterranean and we are all, I mean, you are all people who are educated, you know how like you are involved in the social part of what climate change means, what this means to our civilization, to our culture. We cannot forget that we are talking now about protecting species and protecting biodiversity, while on the same sea, every day, people are getting killed at our borders, while the most normal ecosystem which ever existed in the Mediterranean, which is the ecosystem of our Mediterranean people being able to go from one shore to the other, this is banned. I think there is one point to be told about, let's not be hypocritical. We are talking about protecting life of animals. We are talking about fishery, while we have so many people coming from African countries which are just devastated by European fisheries and coming to Europe as refugees, and they get killed and they drown in our seas. This is also a part of what we do, I think, to be seeing the bigger picture, because we are funded by European Union, and it's European policies which make these crimes every day in our sea. We cannot just close our eyes to it. It's not our subject, or is it our subject? I mean, that's just a question.
I guess it's our subject, and we were discussing with our friend Al Mokhtar about human rights in the Mediterranean, and I guess I'm working for MedPan for more than 12 years, and I guess this is much more than conservation, and we work in the Mediterranean, we are really connected. So thank you very much. And I would like now to invite you to, that we can finish this day. And of course, we give you meeting an appointment for tomorrow. At what time? At 9, I think we start. And tonight, so if you would like to continue to be together, I hope, at 7:30, we meet the bus. At 8, okay, so okay, thank you, Emily. So at 8, the bus will wait for us in the hotel, no? In front of the hotel, and we will bring you in a very nice place, thanks to Tony Effort. I think thanks, Tony, and the Marras Foundation. See you.